paper coming, that's good with the meeting, but facilities committee meeting at 6:06. Do have a forum. Okay, Pete, we sat around to talk to you a little bit about the agenda.
Yeah.
Farmers market, what do you want to say?
Yeah. Well, so emailed everyone with kind of the latest comings and goings of farmers market. So the season's concluded this past weekend. From our perspective, pretty successful year. Our tables did well. We sold more books than we had previously. Speaks to the community support for the library. Anecdotally, we don't get attendance numbers from the farmers market, so I can't say how many people came, in any given year. But good turnout for vendors most weeks, seemed to get stronger as the season went on. But that said, there was never a resolution to the issues between the farmers market proprietor and one of his vendors or farms. So that's disappointing. They just left it at a financial disagreement. So that was unfortunate for all parties involved. There was also the matter of Scott representing himself as speaking on the library's behalf when talking to another farmers market about telling them that they were competing with the library. We seem to have resolved that. I reached out to Hamilton Park and I let them know that the library's official position was that we did not consider them to be competition and we are not concerned about competition. So again, we resolved it, but the sheer volume of issues with managing the farmers market puts a lot of burden on me, puts a lot of burden on our team, has a lot of potential to not be good for the library's reputation. I'll also add that we try to be very accommodating with the farmers market, and his contract does stipulate that he's to pay us before the first of the month in the form of a check. We never got paid with a check once. We never got paid before the first of the month once, and I usually had to chase him down to get paid. So it's not a profit generator for us. We're not super interested in the revenue, but in terms of being the landlord, not an ideal relationship. So my recommendation is that we inform him as soon as possible that we're not going to continue with hosting a farmers market. That gives him time for next summer to find a new home, a new spot elsewhere in town. I'd also recommend that, people like the idea of the farmers market. It would be a big burden for the library to run a farmers market. That's something outside, as I like to say, we don't get taught that in library school. So, while I'm sure we have the capability of doing it, I don't think we have the capacity. So I would recommend that maybe we take a year off from farmers markets and see what the demand is, see what the interest is, see if somebody emerges who's interested in running a farmers market. And that way, if there's strong community support for one, we can have time to do this a little more thoughtfully. So those are my two recommendations: to end the contract with the current proprietor and take a year off before finding a new market. The other option, it would not be, I would not be doing my due diligence if I didn't offer all options. It's a 3-year contract, so there is always the option of we just continue next year as we did this year. The option of doing nothing is an option.
Volunteer support that you had this year for GPL activity. What we ran the table, what we did like 4 times, we ran the table.
Yep.
That was sufficient. You think that would be there if you were to continue this?
I think so. The book sale did a really good job of generating a volunteer pool for us. And we've been working pretty hard to try to keep folks engaged and finding other opportunities for them through the year. There is a groundswell of support in the community. People want to volunteer with the library. So I think, I don't want to promise anything, but like if we did lobby book sales during the winter when it's cold, I think we could find volunteers. I think we don't need too many. We need 2 volunteers per shift and a staff member or a board member to be, in charge of the endeavor. It's so compared to some of the other volunteer things we do, it's not a huge lift. So I think we could keep doing book sales in some form or fashion.
In terms of the other weekends when we did not have a book sale here, what was the library's involvement on a day-to-day, on a weekend basis? Did you have to come in for it?
No, if we weren't doing a book sale, I don't need to be here.
Anybody here? It just
So when we're closed in July and August, there's no staff members on site. In theory, if there was an emergency, I would be contacted. But yeah, there's minimal involvement. In September, when the library's open, the library opens at 1, so there are staff members on site beginning around 11. But again, they have minimal involvement with the actual market.
What do you guys think?
I think we end the contract with him. When he went out to the community and represented himself as being a representative of him, of us, that's it. He's just gonna cause more and more trouble. He seems to have been causing trouble and it's not worth it.
Yeah, I think that he can't hold to like the most basic terms of the contract, I think is enough. And especially because we had this conversation earlier this year. And that was a line that we talked about drawing, and the line's been crossed.
How do we know that he represented himself as a GPL? Who told us that?
Hamilton Park's corporate office told me that someone contacted them speaking as a representative of the library. So I asked them to clarify and said specifically, did he say he was representing the library? And they said yes.
Does Hamilton Square actually have a farmer's market on Sundays?
It's not as such. So they have a couple of vendors. I'm told it's 3 or 4. They don't view it as a farmer's market. They view it as a service to their residents. And then if people in the neighborhood stop by, they're not going to stop them. But they don't, it's not anywhere near the way our farmers markets run or like the Green Market or the Troy Market.
It's not advertised.
Yeah, it's a couple of vendors.
Or any thought anybody thinks he has any claim against us on any?
I can run the contract by the library's lawyer just to make sure, but it's pretty clear.
I think it is pretty clear. I'm just wondering from if you want anything working in the background. So I guess the recommendation of the facilities committee will be to send him a termination notice. Okay, do we need to vote on that as entire board or is
The entire board should vote on it, but they'd be voting on the recommendation from the committee.
Have we talked to him about all received from Hamilton Park?
Yeah, when one of the weekends I was here working with him, I asked him if he'd spoken to Hamilton Park, and he said, "Oh, I reached out and I let them know that we do a farmers market on the same day." And I said, "Oh, did you tell them to stop?" And he said, "Oh, no." So, yeah, granted, it's he said, she said kind of situation.
Right, but he has a history in the community.
Is this something we would do in open session of the board or is this an executive session thing?
I can check on that. I believe it would be open session. I don't think there's anything specific that would make it executive session, but I can double check before the meeting.
If it was out in the public that he was going to get terminated and if the word gets to him because somebody's watching or he's watching, whatever, and it comes out that way, it just might be. I think the word should get to him first before.
Before it's public. Yeah. This goes as well. Right.
I think it should be done in an executive session. Okay. Titan Roofing.
Yeah, work is ongoing. Titan's been here 2 days this week. Kind of like going to the doctor, they're ruling out what they think is wrong. So the first thing that they thought would fix it, did not fix it. And we had fortuitously timed rain this week, so we actually got to see if it worked. So they were back today with a second fix. We'll know tomorrow if it worked.
Right. In terms of the first fix, was it one that you were hoping for, or?
No, what they did was they looked underneath. It's been caulked several times. I think a lot of previous maintenance folks here have tried to repair it, and possibly other vendors have tried to repair it. There's almost like an archaeological record of caulk errors. So they cleaned all of that out. They took out all of the vestigial attempts at fixing and did a fresh treatment of the border of the panels, and that did not resolve it. So now they're going to move on to presumably they put a coating over the top of it, and they're going to see if the coating fixes it.
And if that doesn't work, what happens next?
That's a great.
Their solution for the 10,000 was either one of these two solutions should fix it.
So their quote was just the repair. They did not outline a specific remediation as being covered by the quote. Presumably, if it gets into like materials, if we start talking about replacing glass, rubber gaskets, that's when I think the price might change. But the diagnosis is covered by the quote.
Right. But tomorrow's activity is a fix or a diagnosis.
A fix. It's an attempted fix.
Fix on the cheap, right? I mean, there's no additional, or just what are they doing to it?
So as it's been described to me, is it's an actual, not like a glaze, but a coating on the entire panel. If the issue is the glass, then the glazing would, or the coating would fix it. It's the thought process.
You don't see the glass leaking. I mean, it's the corners that leak, and that's where the caulk would be.
I agree with that assessment, but we paid them for the diagnostic work, so this is to me part of the process. But yeah, they were very optimistic after they were like, "Oh, look how many times this is like. Here's your problem. It's been caulked," and so I think they were surprised that wasn't the fix. But that's my impression. It's not anything they said.
Right. What after glazing, then it's we go to see what they say.
I am at see what they say. Jason Simonton, our facilities manager, spoke to them directly, and he was under the impression he was like of doing something thicker, like covering up the entire panel. I'm not in favor of that because I don't want a solution that doesn't let the light in.
Yeah.
But that was where he thought the next step would be. It would be essentially rubberizing the panel and replacing the glass with rubber. But that's not.
That's much of a solution.
Doesn't sound like one. I do not pretend to be a roofer or a skylight expert, though at the end of this I might be. Without trying to be too funny, Bill, I do think it is like they're going to tell us what they think if this solution doesn't work.
I forwarded to Pete, name of another company that does skylight repair on a more industrial basis. They had a track record of some pretty interesting fixes that seemed like they were up this alley. So if this doesn't work, I think the next option would be to call that company and see what they have to say.
Yeah.
So we can preserve the light up here. I mean, the worst case option would be is to have to seal that thing off. I mean, it would just be really difficult to, I think, pitch to the public that in this
Yeah.
universe of contractors, we can't find somebody who has got the skill to fix this thing, either, Band-Aid fix to comprehensive rehab. We just got to find some steps.
The contract we have now is we should expect out of that at least a root cause understanding of what the leak is.
Yes.
Right, even if they can't. And so a solution to rubberize the panel will come with the diagnostic as well.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, my expectation is the major part of their quote was for diagnostic, that they're supposed to tell us what the problem is. in theory, it should be something that's in their scope to solve.
Sure.
If it's not, we have to have the diagnostic.
Okay, then, or we stand.
So we just, Michael Puspers from the foundation actually just forwarded me one more waiver from one of the artists. We had a third piece. It was a jellyfish that we hadn't gotten to hang yet. So we'll get that hung up, and at that point, everything we've received will have been hung. This is also related to another agenda item I pitched you, Bill, but originally we've been talking about this entire side of the building with the study rooms. It's a lot of blank space on the wall. So we were like, do we put plants on the walls? Do we put art on the walls? We were kind of looking for a solution to make this side more inviting. And I think we accidentally walked into a good solution. We were walking the floor, talking about bookcases and floor space. So we, at the far end of the floor, our large print section actually extends so that there are bookcases on the wall. And we thought, well, why don't we just do more of that? So we're getting quotes to add bookcases in between the study room wall. And then we can move the collection onto the wall, create more floor space. So right now this is vaporware. Until we get a quote, it's not a real idea. But that would also cut down on available space for hanging art. We're in pretty good shape. I mean, we could hang more in the Norman Scale room. There's occasional patches of wall that are available, but there's not a lot of like low-hanging fruit for wall art. And Michael Puspers has been a good partner, like in beating the bushes and finding artists. But I think we should focus on the pipeline so that the pipeline's not sending a foundation member to beat the bushes. The pipeline should be, we've got a path to local artists, to local schools, and we have almost a continuous refreshing program so that every year old art comes down, new art goes up.
Who's gonna run that though?
That's a great question. It's right now we're relying on Michael to do it.
What extent is within the internal library staff interest and capability to do this? I mean, it takes running,
It would have to be part of someone's job. Yeah. So we haven't solved that question yet. We've got some staff members who part of their job is relations with the schools. So if we're committed to hanging local student art, we've got that pipeline. Amy from our administrative team has a pipeline to the artists who hang their art in the Helderberg room for those showings. So we've got kind of an existing pipeline for art shows. Could probably be modified to be a pipeline for loaner art. But yeah, with the understanding of we're running out of prime real estate. So, we won't need that much more.
Vinyl that's gonna go on is that in progress?
I have not made progress on that. If that's something that we're in favor of pursuing, I can start working on that immediately. Like,
What does that involve in terms of putting a piece of, where do we stand on that?
what would we have to do? So the good news is we already have a vendor who did the previous vinyl art. So we could contract with them again to do future vinyl art. That part's easy to solve. Then we'd have to get a photographer and get the actual art that we're hanging, which we haven't started that process yet. So that would be the hard part, is artists and photos.
You guys have any thoughts and put on this? I mean, we have this big space up here. Anything for that big space up there? I'm
So
talking about putting banners from the school up there.
We talked about hanging banners from the school up there. It's also a good spot we probably could put vinyl art up there. The pipes are a little bit in the way. It's a good spot for an accent wall, like just painting a solid color. But yeah, the solution we wanted to do for that was school banners, which again, Michael from the foundation was handling that, but I had a good meeting with the school superintendent. I'd be happy to reach out, tug on his sleeve about it.
What extent do we need to, I mean, are we just consultants here at this, or what do we?
I would say if you want to give me a firm direction and say, this is what we want to do, then I will follow it. Or if you want to say, Pete, you figure it out, I'll also follow that. You tell me you tell me what your role should be.
No, just to give people a little bit of background on this, we've been sort of kicking this around for over a year, more than over a year. Alicia Melchiad, who was the facilities committee person leader before me. She was pursuing the route of getting somebody who did murals. And talking that over in the community meeting last year, we just felt that murals get dated, stale, need to be refreshed, and it's sort of an expensive and long-term proposition to something that maybe has a big midterm life. So we thought we would just try to make this more of a community thing. Like, putting this down and making it with the great schools. And it sounded like at the beginning there would be a flood of stuff, because we do have the schools under stuff in here for various months of the year. It would always look to be like there would be easy pickings from that to put there. But sitting replaced here, we just thought maybe a banner that a senior class could hang and then take down.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Mhm.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, no, it would be, it would be, because they do some really good art, but
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem to be getting anywhere. So then we do there are a number of art exhibits that are in the Held room, and there's really some spectacular photography, and some very talented local artists here. I've seen some really good art things, and maybe they would display of their stuff here. So those were the things that we thought about instead of murals. Still not in favor of murals. I don't know where you.
Well, I like the concept, right? But I think the cost is definitely a factor, and I have no idea what the cost is. But it would be really cool to have like a rotating, once a year, every other year, somebody would paint something up there. But if it becomes prohibitively expensive, then we can, whatever other option exists. I do think that is like prime real estate, and everybody coming out of the library is going to see what goes up there.
Yeah.
So I wonder, do we use that space to make a statement? Like as a library, like a statement of not necessarily of values per se, but like we have a mission, right? Is it worth putting like either something about like our stance as a library or our mission, stenciling something like that up there in some sort of artistic way?
Kind of like, we've got the libraries for everyone banner as you're coming in, something similar for as you're going out.
Yeah, something like that. Something that's just I don't know. It just I know we have a mission. I have to think about like what exactly it would say that makes sense there. I think our mission is probably good fodder for thought there. But whatever just like really reaffirms that like your folks are welcome here, and this is a place for everyone. If stenciling doesn't quite fit, I like the idea of, and we're like beautifully separated by this pipe here in the middle. So you've got room to like really do two things up here. And if one of those things ends up being like a statement, I don't know what it looks like. One of those things ends up being a statement, that's cool. You can also put like a flag on the other side. And the flag can rotate depending on what the month is, right? So like, we have a pride flag up there over the summer. I'm sure there are other flags for other months. I think that's also a statement.
Yeah, I like that idea.
I think I love the art. I love incorporating the art, but that is like, I think that's a great place for us to say something.
In theory, as part of the long range plan, our mission statement could change, be tweaked in the coming months. So that's a good time that if we follow the mission statement example, it's like new mission statement, new place, new year, new us kind of thing.
Do sort of open it up to put the mission statement out there and ask somebody to put out a competition to say design a piece of art to hang on a banner that incorporates the mission statement.
Sure.
I like that.
Yeah. And like we were talking about before, with all the local artist community who are thrilled when this stuff. Yeah. it'll be takers, but it's a good opportunity.
You think so that's when we land on what our statement is in like in consideration of the long range plan to solicit like local artists to then visualize that for us, or specifically to put those words on a banner.
You know, try and get a mix of it. I wouldn't mind that, right? Like 10 commandments. Something. It's got two parts. You could, you know, do the arch thing.
Thou shalt return your books.
But I just think, you know, leave it to somebody. Here's the words of the mission statement. Come up with something that either visualizes it or work, you know, use the word, works the wording into it, or let them surprise us. Then would be sort of like open to a committee of judges that we could somehow come up with to pick the winning banner.
Like that. I think that if that goes on one side and then like, you know, the relevance of other, I come back to flag, right? But like the relevant other flag that goes on the other side, that's a like, here's who we are and what, you know, what we stand for, what we say. And alongside that is a tapped in and salient sort of, you know, reaffirmation of that based on, you know, what we're focusing on for a month.
Yes.
It probably ties down with the books, right? So like every month, you know, Pride Month, there's Pride books, right? Like
Exactly.
band books, right? Yeah, right, all of that stuff.
Absolutely. It gives, if it's rotating, it gives, like, we see people come in to like look for art or look for what's changed, or, oh, the cow's mooing this month, you know, like it gives them a reason to come in.
Right. Say something funny. The Elks Club on Carmen Road, they used to have that.
Oh, that sign.
It would always have, some pithy statement. It always put a smile on your face as you went by. Sometimes it took a couple drive-bys to get it, but they stopped doing that about a year ago now. It just makes it fine. Or another thing you could do, you know, usually like a month kind of theme that just picks up. You know, summer you could just have one for the fall, you know, September back to school, and then October, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. You could just come up with something like that, but just something that is a little bit of diversity instead of static.
Yeah.
So, you know, Pete, in terms of, you know, my directions to Pete would be, or our directions, if you can pursue through your person with the schools and the person with the community, the artists, if they can be directed to come up with pieces that we have designated places for, that would be most helpful, and that do it on a, so it doesn't get stale. And I wouldn't want to say, you know, every month you got to come up with a new one, but some people might like their stuff up longer, and some people might, you know, there might be maybe at least a month, but if somebody wants, there's nothing in the pipeline, keep it up longer, just so it doesn't get stale. Or if somebody doesn't want their thing back, and you have a blank spot.
Yeah, the way we wrote the waiver form is it's at the library's discretion. So if we can take it down earlier, if someone needs to go up there, we can leave it up longer if they're okay with it. Like, we have that flexibility built in. So absolutely.
You know, Mike has been working with them. I would encourage him to continue to work with them or with your person, but maybe at least, you know, a team of two.
Yeah. What?
To the school.
Yeah, and he's got his contacts. I'll be working through the superintendent, and he'll kind of direct me. So we'll approach it from two different sides.
Do you recommend that we do vinyl art on that wall, or do you think we have another solution?
I recommend vinyl art. I recommend that we.
Vinyl art's like the thing that you walk in, you see the big picture from Architecture Park.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, the issue with that is that the resolution is difficult to get when you blow it out. So you really need to have a high res camera and take it. But, you know, the idea is, you know, question would be is, you know, where do we take that from? And who designates that? I mean, what's your
So if we work with the vinyl company that we worked with previously, we should be able to get some answers from them about, what resolution, what type of camera, like what they need in order to get a good vinyl. And then we can work backwards from there and find a photographer, give them a direction, and just and the
Nothing
specs.
idea that you would want to photograph to put down there.
The previously we talked about, because you're looking up when you see it, so maybe a skyline or a treetops, something that when you look up you expect to see it. That was what we talked about originally. I'm open, but I kind of like that idea.
So, well, see if you can get the final person to give you the specifics and then the cost and that type of thing. You can get from him as well, the resolution for the camera. We would take the picture, just give it.
We could, yeah, or a volunteer, a friend of the library, But yeah, as long as we have the specs, we can work from there.
So tagging back to something you were talking about a couple minutes ago, if we put shelves on the wall, is there room above the shelves to hang, or is that not enough space?
Yeah, it's we can actually look post meeting and see what's there, but we would be looking to mimic the large print.
Yeah.
So there's some shelves or some wall space up there. It's similar to if you go into the children's room along that same side, there's like a patch of available wall.
Anything else, Pete, that we going on?
I don't think so.
You said something about buying chairs and tables.
Yes, so yeah, related to the thought, a lot of the responses we got from the long range plan and a lot of what we're seeing when we just kind of see how our patrons use the building is people looking for third space, workspace, reading space, that kind of thing. So if you haven't seen it already, along the garden wall, we've got a couple of demo tables out that are tables that can slide into the chairs we already have. We're doing a little poll to see what people think of them. There's a runaway winner, but don't let that deter you. It's not necessarily a democracy. But so we're experimenting with making those chairs more work friendly so that you can have a laptop, have your coffee, have a book. The other idea we talked about is when we buy new chairs for the reading room, that we get chairs that come with a desk built in so that people can flip it up, put it down if they don't want it. Again, that's contingent on pricing, but also on space. Right now, space kind of at a premium. We don't have a lot of room for more furniture. So we started talking about if we move the collection, portions of it off the floor into the wall, or if we condense the collection down, what would we put in this space and where? So that's another one that we actually have a meeting coming up end of the month now, I believe. I think our next meeting. So we've put together an ad hoc committee to go over the scope of our collection and how we can move it around and make more space for tables, chairs, and communal seating. But it will not surprise any of you to know that library furniture is very expensive. It's good. I mean, if these chairs break or get damaged, they get replaced. So it's not like we're just running to IKEA to get a new chair, but the warranty comes with a cost. So not something we're probably going to do in 1 year. It's probably a multi-year project.
Then just we are looking at the Norman Skill Room.
Mhm.
Is there anything that's sort of shaping up in terms of the way that is being booked and the types of activities that are being booked there that you would say, God, I'm glad we got that space for that because it seems to be shaping up to fit that need?
Staff love it. So we got the new furniture. It's in there specifically for book clubs. And something that we're hearing is that the acoustics in that room are better than the Helderberg room or the McCownville room. So smaller groups, discussion groups, craft groups really like using that space because it's easier to hear the other people talk. So we emphasize putting that nice new furniture in there, and we've been really encouraging our library staff to book their programs in there. So yeah, it's a good mix. People who typically would book the McCownville room, we've been encouraging them or moving them into Norman Skill so that they can try it out. And
Westbrook, not Campbell.
Westbrook, thank you, sorry. Yeah, so we've not heard any complaints unless they're not making it to me. So people seem to be enjoying the room.
It's, percent of the time compared to, is it, compared to the other rooms, is it sort of like, glad we had that space or because we're using that and other space is empty?
Yeah, it's been, we've been taking traffic out of the Westbrook room, so it's been kind of a one-to-one trade. I would have to get back to you on the percent of the time it's booked, but more often than not.
Anybody have any other? rooms? Any issues on the facilities team?
No, no, we're happy. We made our new hire, how long? A month? They've been here?
Almost a month, yeah.
Almost a month, and fitting in really well. So we're delighted.
Okay, so we'll bring this meeting to a conclusion. The one thing we need to consider is recommendation from the farmer's market. We'll do that through executive session. Okay, you want to show us something outside after you?
Yeah.
For, before we, so it's this ends,
Yes.
right? Are we adjourned?
We're done.
Okay.
Sorry, Mike.
Love it.
Oh,